Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are gonna see what if Naruto is the last Asura of his clan and the husband of Kushina Uzumaki, the movie. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's get into the video. Obito, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage and hero of the third great shinobi war, said as he looked at the orange masked man in front of him wearing a black and red cloak. You remember what to do. Hi sensei, the man Obito said, grinning behind his mask. But I must say I am surprised, Hokage-sama, you want me to unleash the Kyuubi on the very village you swore to protect. You know very well, Obito, that my position as Hokage is a way to get back at him. The fourth stated, his voice becoming venomous as his mind pictured the face of the damned Asura who had stolen the love of his life from him. Do not disappoint me, Obito. The fourth warned, glaring at the man before him. Hi leader-sama, Obito said before warping away from the true leader of Akatsuki. Line break. Next day, the Asura residence. Naruto-kun, hurry up, I'm hungry, Tebane. A very pregnant Kushina yelled impatiently as she waited for her husband Naruto to hurry up so they could go to Ichiraku's. I'm coming to Kushina-sama. A voice called back jokingly before a man came down from the stairs. He was tall, handsome with violet eyes and spiky red hair that was a few shades lighter than regular Uzumaki's. He wore a standard Konoha outfit complete with a black forehead protector tied around his head. He was none other than Naruto Asura, the last member of the Asura clan and husband of Kushina Uzumaki. I told you not to call me, that an angry Kushina yelled, bunking her husband atop his head. Ow Kushina-chan, I was only joking. You know I don't like it when you joke about Naruto. Kushina said, turning away as her mood sat in thinking of all her clan the Uzumaki had done to their branch clan, Naruto's clan, the Asura. I know, Kushina-chan. I'm sorry, Naruto apologized, sincerely pulling his frowning wife into his arms. Naruto-kun, do you ever regret that day? Kushina hesitantly asked, looking up at her husband who she knew what day she was talking about. Now how could I regret the day I met my beautiful Kushi-hime? Naruto asked, arching his eyebrows, causing Kushina to blush before she bonked him hard on the head again. I'm being serious, Kushina yelled, wanting her husband to be honest about how he felt about that day. The day her grandfather ordered him to leave his clan and his home so that he could move to Konoha with her to serve and protect her. So my Kushina-chan, Naruto told his wife seriously. I don't regret that day. Naruto added before kissing her deeply to reaffirm his statement. Now let us go and get you that ramen. Naruto announced, pulling his lips away from his flustered wife. Line break. Streets of Konoha. Abasan, Naruto greeted each other happily as he and Kushina stopped in front of a woman who had been like a second mother to him. Naruto-chan, Koharu greeted warmly, smiling at the man whom her friend, Naruto's mother, had asked her to take care of since the boy moved to Konoha. Off to get some ramen for Kushina-chan, I see. Koharu started fondly smiling at the red-haired man next to her surrogate son. I Abasan, Kushina answered, blushing mild in embarrassment at how obvious it was that she and Naruto were doing a ramen run to satisfy her craving. You can join us if you want, Kushina enthusiastically offered, to get a slight laugh from Koharu as she watched the Uzumaki flush further in embarrassment. I'm sorry, Kushina-chan, but I have to meet with Danzo and Hiruzen. Koharu apologized before smiling as she said goodbye to both Naruto and his wife. Naruto-kun, Kushina said, calling to her husband as they made their way forward. HMH, Naruto hummed in response as he returned the many villagers' respectful greetings he got. Have you spoken to Minato? Kushina asked, wanting to know if her husband had spoken to his best friend. About the seal, Naruto whispered questioningly, knowing that his wife was worried about the fact that it would weaken when she gave birth. Naruto informed Kushina after seeing her nod. He and Hiruzen have made plans to make sure that nothing goes wrong with the seal during birth. Naruto elaborated. And what about Jiraiya-sensei? Kushina asked, wanting hers, Naruto's, and Minato's sensei to be there to also monitor the seal, since besides her and Minato, he was the only sealing master in Konoha. I haven't spoken to him, Naruto confessed, having not seen their sensei in nearly 2 weeks. Oh, Kushina simply said, not liking that her sensei wouldn't be there as she frowned before smiling as she caught sight of someone. Mibuyuki-chan. Kushina excitedly yelled, waving at her fellow pregnant friend who stood in front of Ichiraku's before running awkwardly to her. Mibuyuki-chan, you hear Databane? Kushina said excitedly, stopping in front of her friend Mibuyuki Namikaze. Kushina-chan, Mibuyuki said happily with a smile on her face as she saw the deed before blushing slightly as she looked at Uzumaki's husband. Naruto, Mibuyuki greeted, looking at the once dead last of their class that she along with most in her class had made fun of before he had become the very handsome war hero of the third great shinobi war alongside her husband Minato. Mibuyuki, Naruto greeted, smiling at his teammate's wife, causing her blush to deepen. Mibuyuki-chan, we were about to get some ramen. Do you want to join us? Kushina asked, oblivious to the effect her husband had on Mibuyuki. Sure, Kushina-chan, Mibuyuki said, smiling at the deed she had once hated because of Minato's long-ago crush on her that the Uzumaki had been oblivious to. But that had changed after the academy when Kushina showed an obvious interest in Naruto and not Minato, causing the blonde man to move on. So Mibuyuki, where is Minato? Naruto questioned, wanting to talk to his friend about the Kyuubi seal. He's in his office, Naruto, Mibuyuki answered with mildly heated cheeks. Okay, Naruto said, nodding at Mibuyuki as he made a mental note to visit his friend after they got ramen. Aja-san. Kushina greeted me excitedly as they entered Ichiraku's ramen. Kushina-chan, Naruto-kun, Namikaze-sama. Ichiraku greeted back, smiling as he saw two of his top customers and the fourth's wife. What can I get you? The man asked, looking at Kushina in particular. The usual, Kushina said excitedly, causing her husband to groan as he felt his wallet greatly lighten from the large bill he would no doubt have to pay when his wife was done. Line break. Hokage's office. Minato, Naruto greeted with a smile as he entered his friend's office. Naruto, Minato greeted back with a forced smile, looking at the man he loathed. What can I do for you? Minato asked in a false friendly tone. I wanted to know about yours, and here is Insama's final plans for Kushina-chan's delivery. Naruto replied, causing Minato to inwardly growl as he heard the man say those words. This is the idiot Kushina-chan chose over me. Who can't even make plans for the delivery of his own child, Minato thought in disgust as he looked at the man who Kushina always had an interest in, even when the Asura was the dead last of their class. The guarded location has been set up outside of the village where Bawako will deliver the baby, Minato informed. And the seal? Naruto questioned. Is going to be broken, Minato thought, chuckling darkly inside as he looked at the man before him who he had set up plans to take away everything from. With me there, the seal shall remain intact. Minato falsely reassured. Thanks, Minato, Naruto said, smiling at the man. I know we were not on the best of terms when we were kids, but I'm glad that has changed. Me too, Minato said, smiling back at the man who failed to notice the dark look in his eyes. Line break. That night, secret location. Push, Kushina-chan, you are almost there, Naruto encouraged, ignoring the pain he felt from his wife's intense grip as she nearly crushed his hand. Shut up, you bastard, you did this to me. Kushina yelled, glaring at her husband as she tried to push again. Minato, how is the seal? Naruto asked, looking right at the Hokage. It's fine, Minato replied, simply barely resisting the urge to slam a Rasengan into the Asura man's face. Where are you, Obito? The blonde man thought about getting angry as he wondered where his student was. One more big push, Kushina-chan, Bawako encouraged as she saw the head of the first baby. Kushina screamed and tightened her hold around Naruto's hand before stopping as she heard the wailing of a baby over her screams. It's a boy. Bawako announced, cradling a screaming baby, causing the child's parents to smile. You did it, Naruto said proudly before kissing his wife. I did, Kushina said breathlessly as she smiled tiredly at the baby Bawako handed to the medic she had brought to assist. There's still one more, Bawako announced, causing both parents to sweat and drop in embarrassment as they realized they had momentarily forgotten about the other twin in their joy. Now give me one big push, Kushina-chan. Bawako encouraged, knowing the second twin easily followed the first. Kushina screamed as she pushed as hard as she could before stopping again for the second time when the wailing of another baby filled the room. It's a girl, Bawako announced while holding the second baby. Naruto began wanting to ask the only blonde in the room about the seal, but stopped as he sensed another presence in the room before he watched as two kunai buried themselves in Bawako and the assistants' throats. Minato Namikaze and Naruto Asura, a man with an orange mask said as he appeared in front of Kushina, Naruto, and Minato holding the two babies that had just been delivered. Whoever you let my children go, Naruto growled dangerously as he gathered nature chakra with his Asura bloodline, turning his violet eyes into glowing orange-yellow orbs as his pupils took on a cross-like shape. The man behind the orange mask chuckled before doing exactly as the Asura had asked and letting go of the two children. No, Naruto thought in alarm as he watched the man let go of his babies before bolting towards one of them and catching it at the same time as Minato caught the other using his Hiraishin no Jootsu Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Naruto takes the babies to safety and I'll go get Kushina, Minato said with an authoritative tone that hid the anger he felt on the inside over the fact that he had been matched by Naruto's speed. Hi Minato, Naruto said, nodding to his friend before taking the other baby and using his Sage Mode enhanced speed to run with them to safety. Planning to come back and help Minato retrieve Kushina and kill the man who had dared take his wife and threaten his children. Line break. Kaharu's house. Abasan. Naruto called urgently as he appeared in his aunt's house. Naruto-chan, Kaharu said, alarmed as she heard the urgency in his voice and saw the man's eyes that told her he was in Sage Mode, meaning something serious was going on. I need you to keep the baby safe, Naruto said urgently, not wanting to stay longer than he had to, as he prepared to go retrieve his wife. Naruto-chan Kaharu began to ask, wanting to know what happened, but getting her answer, as she and everyone else in Konoha suddenly felt a powerful malice-filled chakra flood the entire village, before a loud roar sounded around her. Kyuubi. The old woman whispered in shock and fear. I have to stop it and save Kushina. I need you to take care of the babies. Naruto stated in a serious voice, as he sensed the Kyuubi in the center of the village, and his wife was chained up outside of it by the orange-masked man that was now fighting Minato. Be safe, Naruto, Kaharu said worriedly, as she took the crying babies from the man she saw as a son. I will, Naruto promised, glancing a final time at his babies. Before running out the house, as he used the sage chakra he was continuously gathering to enhance his speed. Line break, we have to move the Kyuubi outside the village, Hiruzen said more to himself than those around him, as he watched the damage the kitsune was doing from a rooftop. I need Enma. Hiruzen whispered, as he formed the hand seals to summon the Monkey King, but stopped, as a firm hand gripped his shoulder. Naruto wa Hiruzen began wanting to ask why the Asura had interrupted him, but stopped, as he saw the calm and controlled look in the man's eyes. A look he had only seen in the eyes of his predecessors. Don't worry, I've got this, Naruto said calmly, his voice caring for all the shinobi around who turned to look at him. Naruto has to move the Kyuubi outside the village. Hiruzen ordered, earning a nod from the man who ran forward dodging the swiping claws, before he stopped behind the kitsune and gripped one of its massive swaying nine tails. Naruto gritted out in mild effort as he, much to the shock and awe of those watching, lifted the mighty by its tail and threw it over his shoulder towards the outside of the village walls. Hey Kyuubi. Naruto yelled as he ignored the awestruck looks he got. Your fight is with me. Naruto announced, holding out both of his arms. He charged towards the snarling that turned to him outside the village walls. Gyuden. Rasengan Shuriken. Naruto yelled as two large orbs surrounded by shuriken-like wind blades formed in each of his hands before he tossed them both towards the snarling Kyuubi. Uam. Two explosions sounded as they hit the massive along its sides. While most shinobi thought in awe as they watched one man battle the mighty, wondering if his power had worked. Before gasping in alarm as the explosion's clouds cleared to reveal an enraged Kyuubi. It snarled at Naruto before opening its large mouth as it gathered balls of negative and positive chakra, slowly forming a massive black one. Vijayadama, Hiruzen whispered in shock as he saw the Kyuubi in the distance preparing to fire a frightening attack he had first heard about from Hashirama towards Naruto and the village. Should Naruto thought, cursing as he stood in front of the village walls watching in front of him gather chakra for a massive attack. I have to use it. Naruto thought about hardening his now narrowed eyes as he realized he had to use the one thing that could stop the large orb the Kyuubi was forming. Clapping his hands together, the Asura gathered the large amount of nature chakra he would need to perform the technique that was mere legend amongst his now dead clan. Now, Naruto thought he had gathered enough natural chakra as he willed it to manifest around his body, shocking every shinobi watching as an orange-white flame-like chakra form began appearing around the Asura before slowly taking the form of a large humanoid as it grew larger and larger. Okage-sama, what is that? A shinobi asked, his eyes staring at the three-headed, six-armed large humanoid that formed around the Asura. I don't know, Hiruzen whispered, shocking several as they heard the professor say he didn't know. Arg, Naruto groaned in effort from inside the humanoid as he concentrated on balancing the large amount of sage chakra that he was gathering and manifesting from his body. Sensei, Obito said as he stood across from Minato, who held an unconscious Kushina in his arms. Perhaps we should kill him, he could become a problem. The Uchiha suggested as he and the Hokage watched Naruto form the impressive humanoid across from the Kyuubi that was about to fire its attack. No, Minato said in an even voice that hid the anger he felt from watching the man he loathed perform such an impressive technique. I need him alive for what I have planned. Minato added, knowing that killing Naruto would stop his plan to do to Asura what he did to him. Do you have the seal? Minato questioned Obito. Yes sensei, I have it here, Obito said, pulling out the complex seal his sensei had given him. Good, with the technique he's using he'll no doubt be unconscious for at least a few days. That should give you enough time to place the seal on him and dump him where I said. Minato instructed, knowing he had to leave now if was going to save the love of his life, Kushina, who was slowly dying from the extraction as she lay unconscious in his arms. Obito began wanting to say he understood but was interrupted by a loud explosion that sounded in the distance. Boom, everyone in Konoha heard as the Kyuubi's launch collided with Naruto's six-armed avatar, creating a massive shockwave as the tail beast ball exploded, trying to overpower the sage chakra avatar. Arg. Naruto gritted out an effort from inside of his avatar as he poured nature chakra into it to sustain the humanoid as it took on the full force of the explosion. Naruto the third and several shinobi thought in worry as they watched the explosion in a near blinding flash of light as it tried to destroy the avatar before sighing in relief as the light faded to reveal an intact orange-white and black chakra humanoid. Kuchigas. Yatai Kuzushi no Jootsu summoning food cart destroyer jutsu. Naruto and every other shinobi heard a yellow flash appear high above the Kyuubi. Yondaime Sama the shinobi watching all thought in relief as the large cloud of smoke that had appeared above the Kyuubi cleared to reveal Minato who stopped atop Gamabunta with his cloak billowing in the wind as he carried an unconscious Kushina bridal style. Gamabunta began in a gruff voice from above the Kyuubi, wanting to know why he had been summoned, but stopped as he caught sight of the avatar in front of him. Asura's avatar. Gamabunta thought in shock, his eyes widening as he stared at the technique that only Asura Otsutsuki was known to be able to manifest. I need you to help hold down the Kyuubi so I can seal it. Minato yelled from atop the toad boss's head, breaking it from its thoughts as it realized it was atop a thrashing that was about to escape. Right, Gamabunta said as he moved to better pin down the struggling but failed as the Kyuubi used its superior strength to begin overpowering the toad. Minato the toad boss began wanting to tell Minato he couldn't hold it down but stopped as 6 chakra arms moved around him to help better pin them down. Naruto, Gamabunta whispered in shock as the toad saw it was the Asura man who was manifesting the technique of the sage's son. Minato, you need to seal the Kyuubi now. Naruto yelled as he felt his avatar begin to fade. I know, Minato snarled under his breath as he flashed in front of the Kyuubi before gently laying Kushina down as he prepared to use a sealing that would allow him to seal half of the Kyuubi in Kushina and the other half in himself without summoning the Shinigami. Shiki Fujin. Minato heard someone yell from behind him before he could begin his sealing, turning his and everyone else's attention to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen. Both Naruto and Minato yelled respectively, the Asura in shock and the Namikaze in anger. Minato-kun, Naruto-kun, I will be doing the sealing and I leave this village in both your hands. Hiruzen told both men he was ready to die and there was nothing either of them could do to stop him. Hi Hokage-sama, Naruto said slowly, nodding respectfully to the man who was seconds away from sacrificing himself. Hi Hokage-sama, Minato begrudgingly said, making sure to sound respectful since most of the shinobi of Konoha were watching, but inwardly growling as he watched the old man who had soiled his plans to gain half the power of the Kyuubi. Goodbye Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said, smiling sadly at the man in the avatar that he had helped Koharu raise. Goodbye, Naruto said, smiling back at the man before him and every shinobi watching as Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, sacrificed himself to seal half the Kyuubi back into Kushina and the other half into himself. Line break. 2 days later, Konoha Hospital. Arg, Kushina groaned as she felt her whole body aching in unquestionable pain. Naruto-kun, Kushina croaked as her senses gradually came to her, calling the name of the person she wanted to see most as her vision cleared. Kushina. The redhead heard as more of her hearing came back to her. Naruto-kun, Kushina croaked, hopefully thinking it was her husband calling to her, but only meeting disappointment as more of her sight and hearing cleared. Mikoto, Kushina managed with her aching throat as she looked at her Uchiha friend who stood over her with a worried expression. Kushina. Mikoto called again in worry as her and everyone else in the room watched Arita awake. Mikoto-chan, where is Naruto-kun? Kushina managed, weakly wanting to know where her husband was since she couldn't see him in the room. Here, I have some water, Mikoto said as she offered her best friend water for her dry throat, making sure to dodge Kushina's question as she helped her drink. Thank you, Kushina said as finished gulping down the water, relieving her throat. Where is Naruto-kun? Kushina questioned, looking around the room that was filled with her friends. Kushina-chan, how much do you remember? Koharu asked, breaking the somber silence that had filled the room since Uzumaki's question as she stepped in front of her. Kushina frowned as she racked her brain before gasping as she went through the last of her memories. The babies, the Kyuubi. Kushina began rambling in panic but was stopped by Koharu, who laid a hand on her shoulder to stop her. The babies are fine, Koharu reassured with a smile. And the Kyuubi was dealt with. And Naruto-kun? Kushina asked, looking around the room wanting to know where her husband was and why no one was answering her. Koharu began hesitantly wanting to tell Kushina what happened to the man they both cared for, but failed to, as she broke down into tears, thinking how she would never see him again. Koharu, let me, Minato said, making his way from Mibuki, who held their newly born son Menma, before laying a sympathetic hand on Koharu's shoulder to let her know he would take the burden of telling Kushina. Kushina. Minato began with a heavy sigh. After helping with the sealing of the Kyuubi, Naruto passed out from exhaustion. He was admitted to one of the rooms next to yours to recover. But the masked man came back and Minato continued, forcing his voice to break up as his expression saddened. He infiltrated the Roam and killed the Anbu guards I had assigned to guard it before killing him. Minato added, reciting the lie he had told everybody. I'm sorry Kushina. No. 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 Naruto-kun can't be dead. Kushina yelled, staring at the individual faces in the room as she tried to find some hint of this being a cruel joke in their expressions before breaking out into tears as she failed to find any. I'm sorry Kushina, Minato said, moving forward, wanting to embrace and comfort the woman he loved but failing to, as Mikoto beat him to it, pulling the now sobbing Uzumaki into her arms. It's going to be okay Kushina-chan, Mikoto soothed, hugging Kushina as she failed to see the look of malice Minato sent her. Line break, Nami no Kuni. Tsunami hummed to herself in the kitchen as she prepared the fresh fish she had purchased from the bulky fishman Yashi at the harbor earlier today. She was preparing it for dinner with the herbs the old lady Ono had been kind enough to give her. Tausen, can you get that? Tsunami yelled from the kitchen, pausing her cooking as she heard a knock on their front door. Tausen the door. Tsunami yelled again, listening for any reply from her father to show that he had heard her. Fine, I'll get it. Tsunami grumbled slowly as she wiped her hands before sighing as she thought of how her father Tazuna had probably passed out drunk. Yes, Tsunami said, opening the door before screaming in fright as her eyes caught sight of something. Tsunami, what is it? Tazuna asked as he drunkenly made his way to the door having heard his daughter's scream. What is it Tsunami? Tazuna asked again, turning a flustered Tsunami to her father, who simply pointed her delicate finger to a naked man who lay passed out on their porch. Tsunami brings me a blanket. Tazuna ordered, causing the blushing Tsunami to nod as she ran off to get a blanket to cover the naked stranger, the flushed woman, and her father, not noticing the lone glinting Sharingan eye watching them in the distance. Naruto groaned weakly. His eyes fluttered open before immediately closing as the bright light coming into the room nearly blinded him. Where am I? Naruto thought as he slowly opened his eyes again, allowing them to first adjust gradually to the light before he took in the surroundings of the unfamiliar room he was in. Naruto tried to call out but only managed to croak as his dry throat burned in protest. It's been 5 days. Maybe we should take him to Kyoko-san. He has no injuries from the tsunami and we don't have the money to waste paying that old hag so she can put her healing herbs on him. Naruto heard 2 unfamiliar voices argue from outside the room door, causing his eyes to narrow as his shinobi instincts kicked in. I need to use Sage Mode, Naruto thought as he got up to prepare to face the potential enemies outside the door and to get an idea of where he was with his Sage Mode sensory ability. Tausen, he's been unconscious for 5 days. It doesn't matter, Tsunami argued back as she stood outside the door of the room and Tausen had put the unknown man in before stopping mid-sentence as heard something from inside the room causing her to share a look with Tazuna. He's awake, Tazuna states before him and Tsunami cautiously makes their way into the room. Naruto grunted out in pain as he fell face first onto the floor with a loud thud. His legs having given out from under him causing the Asura man to curse as he wondered why his body felt so weak. What's wrong with me? Naruto thought in alarm, shakingly getting back up onto his feet before he grabbed the bedpost to better steady himself. There, Naruto thought as he stopped wobbling before tapping into his Asura bloodline so he could enter Sage Mode. That's strange, Naruto thought, frowning in concern as he felt no familiar heightened awareness that always came when he entered Sage Mode. Page Bunshin no Jootsu Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto tried to create a single Bunshin after he failed to enter Sage Mode. No clone, Naruto thought, further frowning as he grew increasingly alarmed after he noticed no Bunshin popping into existence next to him. Raising his right hand with a deep frown on his face, Naruto tried molding his chakra so he could create a familiar glowing blue orb of swirling chakra, but failed as no Rasengan appeared. I can't access my chakra. Naruto concluded in alarm as he failed to create a Rasengan a second time. Panic filled his being as he realized now why his body felt so weak, why he couldn't enter Sage Mode or make a single clone or Rasengan, because he couldn't access his chakra. You're awake, Naruto heard from right behind him, causing him to break out of the panic of his discovery as he turned his head to a man and a young woman that were both staring at him. What's your name? Tazuna asked as he stared at the now awake stranger before him, needing to know if he was a threat. Naruto croaked as he stood on guard, trying to buy himself some time as he tried tapping into his reserves. Not wanting to rely on only his taijutsu if either the man, woman or other unknown enemy who may be waiting outside the room attacked him, since he suspected they had something to do with the cutting off the access to his chakra. I'm Tazuna and this is my daughter Tsunami. Tazuna gestured at his daughter, who stood slightly red-faced as her eyes fell onto the handsome stranger's naked torso, remembering the state she had found him in. Where are you from, Naruto? Tazuna asked, trying to pry out more information about the stranger without making him grow suspicious. I'm from. Naruto began answering, but stopped as a sudden hot excruciating pain exploded in his mind, causing him to scream out in agony as he gripped his throbbing skulls. Naruto-san. Tsunami yelled in worry as she moved to help the screaming man, who collapsed crashing onto the floor before her eyes, gripping his head in obvious pain. Tsunamis don't. Tazuna warned over Naruto's screams, grabbing his daughter to stop her from helping the screaming man on the floor. Tausen, we have to help him. Tsunami argued, trying to work her way out of her father's tight grip so she could help Naruto. Tsunami, look. Tazuna yelled, gesturing at the man's chest. What? Tsunami began to ask, but stopped as she saw what her father was pointing to. There in the center of the man's chest was a glowing, strange, small tattoo-like symbol that was growing larger and larger each second, covering more of the man's chest and torso as it did. Don't touch him. Tazuna warned his daughter, not wanting her to touch the man since he suspected the strange glowing symbol that kept growing had something to do with the agony he was in. We have to help him, Tausen, Tsunami said, not caring about her father's warning as she worked her way out of his firm grip before running to the screaming man. Naruto-san. Tsunami yelled to the man, trying to gain his attention as she knelt beside his thrashing form. Not knowing what else to do as she looked down at him, calling his name over and over. Naruto-san. Tsunami called out again for the umpteenth time as she watched the large symbol that had covered most of his body vanish before the man's screams and thrashing halted, leaving the room in absolute silence as the father-daughter duo closely watched the man who was laying panting on the floor. Kushina, Tsunami barely heard Naruto faintly croak as his eyes opened to find hers before he raised a shaky hand towards her, cupping her cheek gently as he smiled up at her lovingly, causing Tsunami to blush as she looked into the man's violet eyes. Enjoying the feeling of the rough hand she leaned into against her soft skin. Naruto-san. Tsunami called out in alarm, her blush fading as she watched the man's eyes suddenly roll backwards into his skull before his body went limp as he passed out. Naruto-san. Tsunami called out again in worry as she tried shaking him awake, wondering what had just happened and who this Kushina he had mistaken her for was. Line break. That evening, 6 hours later, Tausen he woke up, Tsunami told her father as she saw Naruto begin to stir. It had been close to 6 hours since he fell unconscious, and Tsunami had been waiting in the room concerned, wondering what had happened to cause him to thrash in pain the way he had. Ah, Tsunami, and Tazuna heard Naruto groan as his eyes slowly fluttered open. Before they gazed around the room, stopping as they settled on Tsunami, who blushed as she turned away from his intense, unwavering gaze. Naruto began to croak, causing Tsunami to turn back to him as she heard him try to speak but failed because of an obviously dry throat. Here, Naruto-san drinks this, Tsunami said, nervously making her way forward towards the glass of water she set at his bedside so she could help him drink. Thank you. Tsunami heard Naruto say as she lowered the now empty glass whose contents he had just gulped down. You're welcome, Naruto-san. Tsunami said, setting down the empty glass before moving to stand back next to her father. Who are you? Where am I? Tazuna heard Naruto ask, causing the older man to scoff. Do you suffer from short-term memory or something like Naruto? Is that why you ended up naked on my porch because you couldn't find your way home? Tazuna asked bluntly, not wanting to reintroduce himself to this stranger who seemed to have already forgotten him. Tausen. A blushing Tsunami chided her father, shooting him a disapproving look for his bluntness. I'm Tsunami, and this is my father Tazuna. You are in my house, Naruto-san and Nami no Kuni. Tsunami replied, answering Naruto's question as she turned to him. Nami no Kuni? Naruto is repeatedly confused as he looks up at the Tsunami. I wave country, Tsunami repeatedly earned a frown from Naruto. Where are you from, Naruto-san? Tsunami questioned, having noticed his clear confusion, which told her he wasn't from these parts like she and Tazuna had suspected. I don't know, Naruto answered slowly as he tried remembering where he was from but drawing a blank as something repeatedly blocked him from remembering. I don't know. I can't remember. Line break. Konoha, Namika's residence. Minakoi, Mibuki moaned in pleasure as she rocked her hips to meet her husband's passionate thrusts, digging her nails deeper into him as each thrust brought her closer and closer to her release. Harder, Mina-kun, Mibuki pleaded, causing Minato to thrust harder and faster into her as the volume of Mibuki's moans rose, telling him she was nearing her imminent release. Minato. Mibuki suddenly cried out, her toes curling as she found her earth-shattering release, promoting Minato to thrust faster into her as he sought his own euphoria. Mibuki, Minato grunted as his body stiffened before rope after rope of his hot seed shot into the squirming Mibuki, whose tight walls convulsed around his throbbing thickness, milking him as he collapsed panting atop her sweaty form. I love you, Mibuki breathlessly informed, coming down from her high as she unraveled her slender legs from around Minato's waist before kissing him passionately as she gripped a fistful of his blonde locks, bringing his lips to hers. I love you too, Minato whispered as he pulled his lips back from Mibuki before moving next to her, causing the blonde woman to sigh in contentment as Minato moved to cuddle with her. I love you Mina-kun, Mibuki repeated as she snuggled into her husband before falling asleep smiling. Pathetic, a fully clothed Minato thought disgustedly as he stood beside the bed that lay a naked Mibuki. Having watched his work that he knew was now thankfully over since the sleeping blonde woman had stopped with her nauseating moans. He never ever touched her the way Mibuki always thought he did. It would be a betrayal to Kushina which he couldn't do. The one time he had 9 months ago was in a moment of utter weakness that had left him unsatisfied, dirty, and guilt-ridden. Despite him imagining it was Kushina the entire time he touched Mibuki. Minato, Mibuki muttered, smiling in her sleep, telling Minato she was dreaming of him. Shifting the blonde man's thoughts as he wondered if he should place the loyalty seal he had on Mibuki and Kushina so she could dream of him the way the blonde woman did and love him blindly the way the blonde woman also did. No, Minato told himself, pushing away those thoughts immediately from his head. He would win Kushina's heart with the plan he had set up and not with the use of seals. He could not take away her free will and force her to love him blindly like he had Mibuki. He cared too much for Kushina to do that. Minato heard a loud cry come from the adjacent room, breaking him from his thoughts as he heard the result of his weakness the one time he actually had sex with Mibuki cry. Frowning, Minato moved away from the bed and made his way out of the room before arriving in the nursery he had helped set up. Looking down into the wooden crib, Minato uncaringly watched a tiny shrieking blonde boy his wife had named Menma. Not bothering to see what was wrong as he stood there watching since he didn't love Menma because he had been born from a woman that wasn't Kushina. Minato, the blonde, heard from behind him, turning his attention to a robe-wearing Mibuki. "What's wrong with Menma-chan?" Mibuki asked as she moved towards their baby. "I don't know," Minato replied, forcing a panicked tone in his voice. "And I don't care," the blonde man added as he watched Mibuki lift Menma to see what was wrong. "Did you check his diaper?" Mibuki asked, sniffing their son. "The diaper? I forgot about that," Minato lied sheepishly. "That's the first thing you check, Minato, you are not supposed to forget about," Mibuki chided, glaring slightly at her husband. "I'm sorry Mibuki-chan, it won't happen again," Minato promised, still looking embarrassed, earning a sigh from Mibuki who couldn't stay mad at him with that cute embarrassed look of his. "It's fine Minakoi, I'll change Menma-chan, just don't forget to check the diaper next time," Mibuki told Minato, quickly kissing the sheepish-looking man before moving to change the baby. Dropping his facade, Minato glared darkly at the woman he couldn't believe he had just apologized to. He would get rid of her and the baby she was changing once he won over Kushina. But first he had to get rid of Mikoto, who had been a constant obstacle between him and Kushina. Staying by her side up until now, even a week after the Kyuubi attack, and that was ruining his plans. "I will get rid of you Mikoto Uchiha one way or another," Minato promised darkly before pushing aside his thoughts as he heard his wife say something. "Mina-kun, can you help me with this?" Mibuki asked for her husband's help even though she could do it herself. "Sure Mibuki-chan, what do you need?" Minato asked as he moved to the changing table. "Can you throw this away from me?" Mibuki gestured at the dirty diaper she held out for Minato. "What?" Minato asked slowly with bold fists. "Can you throw this away for me Minakoi?" Mibuki requested again with a pouting puppy-eyed look that disgusted Minato instead of pulling at the strings of his heart like Mibuki intended. "Sure Mibuki-chan, anything for," Minato said forcefully, kissing Mibuki's cheek before taking the dirty diaper. "Thanks Minakoi," Mibuki said smiling as she turned back to the baby, not noticing the menacing look Minato sent her way as he threw away the dirty diaper. Thinking of how he couldn't wait to get rid of his wife and her baby just as he had the damned Asura. Line break, Nami no Kuni. "We don't know anything about him besides his obvious hobby of passing out naked on people's doorsteps. Because he doesn't remember Tausen," Tsunami argued back with a blush standing outside of Naruto's room. "How can he not remember? I don't know Tausen, but you saw what happened to him early May." "No Tsunami," Tazuna said, cutting off his daughter as he brushed off her argument. "Unless he can tell us more about himself than just his name, Naruto has to leave the house immediately. I don't care if it's the middle of the night Tsunami. I'm not letting a man we found naked stay in this house with you if he can only tell us his name," Azuna said in a rare moment of responsibility as he refused to let the unknown man who suspiciously didn't know more than his name sleep in the same house as his daughter Tsunami. "Tausen please," Tsunami began to plead, not wanting her father to kick out the man who had just woken up from a 5-day coma even if her father was just being protective of her. "No Tsunami, my decision is final," Tazuna said, interrupting his daughter's pleas. "He needs to leave immediately," Tazuna said in a final nonsense tone that left no room for arguing before he walked away. Leaving behind Tsunami, who sighed before turning back to the room. "He wants me to go?" Naruto started asked slowly, having heard the entire argument between Tazuna and Tsunami. "Yes, unless you can remember something about Naruto-san." "I can't," Naruto told Tsunami, frustrated as he gripped his head trying to remember. I can't remember anything, Naruto repeated for the umpteenth time that evening, causing Tsunami to frown sadly as she heard the blatant turmoil in his voice. Naruto-san, earlier today you mentioned a name I think you might remember. Tsunami began with a mild blush, remembering what happened earlier with Naruto before he passed out. What was the name? Naruto asked, his full attention to the Tsunami as he waited to hear the name that might trigger some memories. Kushina. Kushina, Naruto repeated as he stared at the Tsunami, waiting to remember. Kushina, Naruto repeated again as he waited for his mind to fill with memories. Kushina, Naruto repeated a third time, waiting, but nothing. Nothing came. No memories, no familiar feeling, just nothing. The name had absolutely no effect on him or his memories. I don't remember, Naruto whispered slowly, his shoulders sagging as the last of his hope of remembering vanished. I'm sure they will come to Naruto-san, Tsunami encouraged softly, smiling sympathetically at the downtrodden man. Hi, Naruto said, forcing a smile as he looked at the woman who had been so kind to him. But not tonight. Naruto added, his forced smile vanishing as he remembered what Tazuna had said. Do you have anywhere to go, Naruto-san? Tsunami worryingly asked before slapping herself as she thought over what she had just asked. No, Naruto said, his lips twitching slightly at Tsunami's embarrassed expression. I have no memories. I'm sorry, Naruto-san, Tsunami apologized. I forgot, Tsunami continued but stopped as she realized what she was about to say. You forgot, Naruto finished, having caught on to what Tsunami was about to say. Hi, I'm sorry, Naruto-san, Tsunami apologized, feeling further embarrassed about not being sensitive to the man's condition. It's fine, Naruto waved off with a chuckle, temporarily forgetting his memory loss problems as he looked at Tsunami's embarrassed expression. Naruto-san, Naruto heard Tsunami say as his chuckles died down. Here. Tsunami offered to turn Naruto's attention to her hand. Money? Naruto was confused as he recognized what Tsunami was holding out to him, not sure why she was doing it. Hi, to help you get a room for tonight, Tsunami explained, holding out the money she always kept on her person for emergencies. I can't, Naruto said, refusing the kind gesture, knowing the kind woman had already done too much for him. Please, Naruto-san, you have nowhere to go, and it's nighttime. Take the money so you can at least find a room. Tsunami pleaded, knowing the man needed the money since he had none of his own. Thank you, Tsunami, Naruto said gratefully, accepting the money before standing to leave as he remembered Tazuna's order to leave his house immediately. You need a shirt. Tsunami started slowly with a mild blush, looking at Naruto, who was only dressed in a pair of her father's oversized pants. What? You need a shirt, Tsunami repeated, briefly meeting Naruto's gaze before turning away. Please wait here, Naruto-san, Tsunami requested before hurrying out of the room as she made her way to get him one of her father's shirts. Sitting down on the bed as he waited for the Tsunami to return, Naruto wondered what he was going to do. Where was he going to go? He was a man with no memory besides his name and had no idea what he would find out there once he left this house. Maybe I'll ask Tsunami, Naruto whispered, his thoughts of the said woman interrupted as he heard her screams. Tsunami. Naruto yelled as he bolted out the room before heading towards the direction of the screams as he ran through the unfamiliar house. Tsunami. Naruto yelled again, barging into another room in search of Tsunami before stopping as he saw something that made his blood boil. Naruto, Tsunami barely managed between her sobs. Relief filled her as she noticed the violet-eyed man. Whoever you are, let her go. Naruto yelled, glaring dangerously at the orange-masked man who stood over an unconscious Tazuna with a loose arm around Tsunami's throat. I thought you would have learned to not say those words to me from our previous encounter with Naruto. The orange-masked man said, chuckling, causing Naruto to frown as he heard he had encountered this unknown man before. What? Naruto began to ask, confused, but stopped as his eyes widened. Watching as the man moved, releasing Tsunami as he effortlessly tossed her across the room. Tsunami. Naruto yelled as he stood helpless, watching the kind woman fly across the room before landing painfully on the floor, becoming a groaning heap as she clutched her arm that she had painfully landed on. You? Naruto growled dangerously as he glared at the cloaked man. I'm going to arg. Naruto continued his threat, becoming a cry of pain as a hard fist drove into his gut, causing him to hunch over as the masked man who had somehow suddenly appeared before him punched him. You're going to what, Naruto? The orange-masked man asked a hunched Naruto mockingly, retracting his fist before raising his leg as he sent out a hard follow-up kick to Naruto's side. Tsunami groaned from the floor as she watched the masked man send Naruto flying across the room with a kick. Stop. Tsunami pleaded as she watched the man walk towards the downed Naruto before repeatedly punching and kicking him. Stop. Tsunami pleaded again, gathering her strength as she got up before running towards the masked man to stop him. Stop. Tsunami yelled again as she tried pushing away the masked man who spun away from the downed Naruto at speed she couldn't see before grabbing her forcefully by the throat. Please stop, Tsunami pleaded with the orange-masked man who was choking her as he raised her off the ground, causing him to chuckle darkly behind his mask as he tightened his unrelenting grip around the struggling Tsunami. Tsunami, Naruto worriedly called out as he pushed himself off the floor, ignoring the pain he felt from the multiple blows he had just received as he charged towards the masked man choking Tsunami. Let her go. Naruto yelled, running with a cocked fist towards the cloaked man before throwing out a punch towards him as he aimed to free Tsunami. What? A wide-eyed Naruto thought in panic as his fist and the rest of his body phased through the orange-masked man who remained unharmed. I thought by now you would have learned not to say that, Naruto. The cloaked man repeated for a second time tonight, smirking as he drew Tsunami closer before tossing her away using more strength than he had the first time, knocking her out as the back of her body slammed forcefully against the wall, leaving behind a spiderweb of cracks as her limp form crumbled to the ground. Tsunami, Naruto whispered, rage building up inside of him as he saw her remain unmoving. Tsunami, Naruto repeated again between clenched teeth as his fists balled. Tsunami. Naruto yelled a third time, causing the orange-masked man to take a shocked step back as he saw Naruto's eyes flash orange-yellow repeatedly as a large seal matrix appeared across his naked torso. Sage mode, the orange-masked man whispered in shock as he looked at Naruto's flashing orange-yellow eyes, which told him the man was repeatedly entering and exiting safe mode, which shouldn't be possible. The seal, the mask thought, alarmed as the matrix he had applied days ago started to unexplainably glow, causing him to further grow alarmed as he suspected the seal was breaking. You. Naruto yelled enraged as he blitzed in front of the masked man before burying his fist into his face, using the incredible unknown power that he had suddenly felt build up inside of him after seeing the man hurt Tsunami. The masked man grunted out in pain as most of his mask shattered from the force of the blow to his face that sent him flying out the house through a wall. You hurt Tsunami. Naruto yelled, his rage building up inside of him as he charged towards the masked man he had just punched. You hurt her. Naruto yelled as he sent out a flow-up kick towards the masked man who had righted himself in midair, his foot missing its target as it, much to his shock, phased through the cloaked man with the rest of his body like his fist had earlier tonight. While Naruto began as he turned to face the man again but stopped as he dropped to his knees suddenly exhausted. The unknown strength he had gained from watching the masked man hurt Tsunami leaving him. I cannot kill you, the kneeling Naruto heard the man in front of him coldly say, turning Naruto's attention to his scarred face that was partially exposed by his now damaged mask. But I will hurt you. The man added coldly with obvious venom dripping in his voice, causing Naruto to involuntarily shudder in fear before he grunted in pain as the man appeared in front of him, mercilessly kicking Naruto in the chest, knocking the pale red-haired man backwards as he skidded across the forest floor. Naruto grunted as a hand wrapped firmly around his throat, lifting his aching body up off the floor before a force painfully hit his throbbing chest, throwing him back through several trees. Please, Naruto pleaded as he lay in the splinters of wood from the destroyed trees his aching body had gone through. Please, Naruto pleaded as the cloaked man stood over him, causing the red-eyed man to let out a sinister chuckle as a small vortex appeared between them. I said I would hurt you, the cloaked man recalled, causing Naruto's eyes to widen in fear before his whole body exploded in mind-numbing pain as several shurikens shot out the vortex, burying themselves all over his body, leaving him severely bleeding, broken, and unconscious. Naruto. The orange-masked man heard from behind, causing him to smirk behind the remains of his mask as he saw Izuna and Tsunami coming towards them in the distance. My part here is done, the masked man thought before warping away, knowing that what his sensei wanted concerning the two civilians and the Asura was done. Line break, secret Akatsuki base. Obito, what happened to your mask? Minato asked as he flashed to from his home to the location Obito had summoned him to using his Hiraishin marker. The access sage mode, Obito revealed, causing Minato to breathe in sharply as his body stiffened. Did the seal break? Minato questioned calmly, not letting his inner emotions show. No, Obito replied quickly, seeing the underlying rage his sensei's eyes held. His access was only temporary. Obito added, causing Minato to relax. And his memories remained sealed. Are you sure? He didn't remember who I was, sensei. Obito elaborated, earning a scoff from Minato, who knew the Asura was always an idiot and his forgetting Obito could have just likely been a slip of the idiot's mind instead of the seal. And the drunkard and his daughter? Needing some convincing, Obito said darkly, causing Minato to smirk as heard his student's tone, knowing that the Asura suffered from Obito's execution of the backup plan to have Naruto welcomed into the two civilians' lives and home. Good work, Obito, Minato said approvingly before flashing away with a smile, knowing that tonight he would definitely sleep well since somewhere in Nami no Kuni the Asura he loathed lay beaten, broken, and hurting. Is he going to be okay? Tsunami questioned, worry evident in her voice as she watched Nami no Kuni's best healer, Kyoko, change the still unconscious Naruto's bandages. Come here Tsunami-chan, Kyoko instructed not to bother to answer the young woman's question as she called her forward instead. Do you see the wounds on his legs, arms, and the rest of his body? The old healer questioned gesturing at the unconscious man's body that she had just finished unbandaging. No, Tsunami replied with a frown, not seeing the wounds Kyoko was talking about. Exactly, Kyoko deadpanned. No person can heal that fast even with my herbs, and with the horrific state his body was in 7 days ago, this man should have far more than just a few minor cuts on his chest. Kyoko explained gesturing to the only part of Naruto's body that still bore any sign or trace of an injury. But he doesn't, he's healing at an impossibly fast rate. So if you want to know if he's going to be okay Tsunami-chan, yes he's going to be better than okay. So when can he move? Tazuna asked Kyoko as he came into the room, having heard what the old healer said. With just a few minor cuts on his chest, he can move as soon as he wakes up. The sooner he can get out of my house. Tazuna grumbled slowly, glaring at the man he now knew he should have left naked outside the day they found him. You cannot kick Naruto-san out. Why not Tsunami? After all that has happened, why can't I kick out the stranger who is responsible for all the bad that happened to us last week? Because of Tausen he has nowhere else to go. He's injured with no memories, with no one to take care of him, and we can't just kick him out when we are all he has. We have to help him. No Tsunami he still has to leave, Tazuna refused. Because of him that man attacked us. Because of him we nearly died, and because of him I had to patch up a hole in the side of our house. So him being injured with no memories is not a good enough reason to let him stay after all that Tsunami. Once he wakes up he is leaving. Tausen? Tsunami protested not believing her father still wanted to kick out this man that obviously needed their help. Fine if you kick out Naruto-dan I'm also leaving with him. Tsunami bluffed knowing her father would never let her leave and would be compelled to allow Naruto to stay if it meant keeping her here. What? A shocked Azuna yelled not realizing his daughter was bluffing as he stared at her wide-eyed. If you force Naruto-san out I'm leaving with him. An unwavering Tsunami repeated. Tsunami enough. Kyoko interrupted, turning Tazuna and Tsunami's attention back towards her. My patient doesn't need to hear you two bickering whilst he heals. Kyoko told the two as she gestured at the fresh bandages she had only wrapped around Naruto's chest, seeing no need to wrap the rest of his body since it had already healed. Now no one is leaving this house. Kyoko continued, her eyes lingering on Tsunami who she knew was bluffing. Naruto-san needs a place to stay whilst he heals and regains his memories. Kyoko added knowing about the man's mental condition, having been told about it earlier this week by the father-daughter duo. He's injured with no memory of Tazuna-san, letting him stay is the only thing to do. Kyoko interrupted again. Now when Naruto-san wakes up, bring him to my house, Tsunami-chan. I have some work for him that will help him earn some money when he's fully healed. Kyoko instructed, thinking of how she would teach the young strong man before her to grow and take care of her healing herbs since her old body couldn't handle the strain of still doing it anymore. Of which I will instruct him to hand half to you Tazuna-san for all your troubles gained from letting my patient Naruto-san stay here until I help him remember. Kyoko added knowing Tazuna would cave once he heard the word money. Fine. Tazuna hesitantly agreed after taking a moment to consider Kuroko's words, a large part of him telling him not to since something inside of him suspected the unconscious man before him will bring more trouble than all the money in the world could make up for. Can he stay? Tsunami excitedly asked, failing to hide the joy she felt as she turned to her father. Hi Tsunami, Tazuna grumbled out slowly, not liking the overjoyed look on his daughter's face. Naruto can stay here as Kyoko's patient whilst she helps him regain his memories, then he's out. Line break. Konoha, Asura Uzumaki residence. Kushina Uzumaki Asura, we are not taking no for an answer. You're coming with us to get some ramen whether you like it or not. Mikoto told her friend as she, Tsume, Hitomi, Mibuki and Yoshino all stood around the redeed they had come to convince to come out with them. I'm sorry Mikoto-chan, but you have to take care of the twins. Tsume cut the redeed off, finishing the excuse she and everyone else knew Kushina was going to use since she had used it every single time anyone tried to get the Uzumaki Asura out of the house she had cooped herself in since the Kyuubi attack, having only left once for her husband's funeral. I do have Tsume-chan. Kushina insisted as she looked at her Inyazuka friend who shot her a skeptical look. Ashina-chan and Naruko-cha. Have Kaharu-san take care of them. Yoshino reminded Kushina, interrupting her as she also tried to convince the redeed to leave the house with them. And like Mikoto-chan said, we're not taking no for an answer Kushina-chan. If you don't come with us willingly, Tsume-chan will drag you out of here after Hitomi-chan uses the Juken gentle fist on you. Yoshino informed Kushina, earning a disapproving look from the Hyuga and a feral grin from the Inyazuka who approved the action. What do you say, Hito-chan? We're not forcing Kushina-chan to come with us. Tsume-chan. Hitomi Hyuga cut off the grinning Inyazuka with a slight glare, causing the feral woman to pout at her Hyuga friend to ruin her fun. Kushina-chan, we are just worried about you. Ever since you checked out the hospital you've been. I know, Hitomi-chan. Kushina interrupts. I know that you're all trying to get me to go out with you because you are all worried about me and want to try to cheer me up by getting some ramen together, but I can't. I can't come get ramen with you at Ichiraku's. Kushina told her friends, causing them to share a worried look with each other since Kushina Uzumaki Asura, the #1 ramen addict of Konoha, had never once refused a noodle dish. Kushi, I can't. Kushina cut off her Ichiha friend with a raised voice before she could say anything. Naruto Koi and I had our first date there, Mikoto-chan, Kushina slowly explained in a sad voice. Most of our following dates were there. He took me there after he proposed to me, after I told him I was pregnant, we had our last meal together there, and I can't go to Ichiraku's again knowing that I will never share another bowl of Ajisan's ramen with him. Not after all the memories we made together there. Kushina continued, her voice breaking more and more with each word until she began to openly cry thinking of Naruto. Causing her friends to kick themselves seeing the redeed upset since they had come here to try cheer her up, but it only achieved the opposite. Then don't go to Ichiraku's. A voice said, turning everyone's attention to Kaheru, who came into the room holding the 2 now empty bottles she had just fed to the twins. Abasan. Go to Akamichi BBQ or go visit your friend at the Yamanaka flower shop. Just leave the house, Kushina-chan, and do something that doesn't involve you crying all day or taking care of the twins. Kaheru told Kushina gently, knowing that her friends had the right idea about her needing to get out the house. Abasan, I can. You can, and you will, Kushina-chan. Naruto-chan would want you to. And, as Hokage, I order you to. A voice said from behind Tsume, startling everyone before they all relaxed as they saw who it was except for Kaheru, who had to hide the rage and disgust she felt at seeing the blonde man before her who had just entered the room. Minato. Kushina. Minato greeted the surprised Uzumaki back as he ignored his smiling wife. Kaheru's right, Kushina, Naruto was my best friend and I know he would want you to go out with your friends and enjoy yourself. Boo. There's no buts, Kushina. Minato interrupted the woman he loved. Like I said, I'm ordering you to go as the Hokage and don't worry about the twins. I'll help Kaheru take care of them. Minato reassured Kushina as he played hero, earning a grateful smile from Kushina that caused him to inwardly smirk as he saw his spying on her and her friends had paid off. Okay, fine, Kushina agreed after a moment as she glanced at her friends who were all eagerly awaiting her answer. Just let me change from these clothes first. I have been wearing them for the past 3 days, Kushina admitted to being embarrassed, earning laughs from all her friends who were glad to see bits of the old Kushina trickling back. I can tell. Tsume teased playfully as she pinched her nose, earning her a bonk on the head courtesy of a further embarrassed Kushina, and another round of laughs from all her friends except Minato, who inwardly growled at hearing the Inyazuka make fun of Kushina. Minato Koi, Mibuki called to her husband after Kushina left to go clean up and change. Thank you for helping us convince Kushina-chan. Naruto was my best friend, Mibuki-chan, and I know he wouldn't want to see Kushina like this. Minato explained, brushing off his wife's thanks as he forced a remorseful tone into his voice. Earning sympathetic looks from all the women in the room who thought of how hard Naruto's death must have been on him as they fell for Minato's facade, with the exception of Kaheru, who glared at the blonde instead. You might be fooling them and everyone else, Minato, but I know what you did. I know what you did to Naruto-chan and you will pay for what you did to him and the rest of my family. Kaheru promised darkly as she remembered the eye-opening conversation she had last night with Danzo. Flashback. Previous evening. Danzo, Kaheru greeted the bandaged man evenly as she opened her front door to him. Kaheru, Danzo greeted back in an equally even voice. Is there somewhere we can talk privately? About what? Kaheru wondered what the bandaged man wanted to talk about late in the evening. Not here. Danzo told Kaheru seriously, earning a nod from her before she gestured for him to follow her as she led him to her home office. Isagi, you apply the privacy seals. Danzo ordered his agents codenamed Hare and Panther to apply the seals he had given them as he and Kaheru entered her office. Earning a glare from the said woman as she watched 2 rude agents she didn't even know were following them enter the office and apply seals to the office walls. Didn't Hare and order you to disband your root program? Kaheru glaring at Danzo as she sat in one of the chairs in the room. We are not here to talk about what Hiruzen did or didn't do in Kaheru. Danzo told the woman across from him as he also sat down, his 2 rude agents moving to stand either side of him. We're here to talk about your surrogate son, Naruto Asura, and the fact that he's still alive. What? This is a folder of the evidence I had gathered to prove to you that your surrogate son did not die. Danzo explained as Usagi stepped forward and handed Kaheru a folder at her leader's signal. In it are photos of a very much alive Naruto who lies unconscious but uninjured in Nami no Kuni thanks to one of the 4 agents I have watched who healed him. Danzo told Kaharu, who shakily opened the folder to look at the pictures he was talking about. Also, there is a medical report I had made by my top medic Usagi after she examined the remains of the body you buried and compared its DNA to a sample of Naruto's. He's alive. Kaharu whispered as she looked at the photos and reported again that proved Naruto was alive and not buried 6 feet in the ground at the Konoha Heroes Cemetery. Naruto-chan is alive. Kaharu gasped happily as she started to cry. We have to take this to Minato, Kaharu suddenly said as she quickly got up from her seat to take the information to Minato, who could immediately send out shinobi to retrieve him. Not caring that it was the middle of the night as she moved towards the door but not making it anywhere near it as Danzo 2 agent swiftly blocked her path. Danzo, sit down. Danzo ordered Kaharu as he interrupted her protest. Sit down, Kaharu. Danzo repeated, raising his voice this time around after seeing the woman remain where she was. No, I have. Usagi, hi, returns Kaharu to her seat. Danzo ordered, cutting off Kaharu again as he ordered his 2 agents. Who did as they were told, grabbing Kaharu before forcing her back into her seat. Danzo, what is the meaning of this? Kaharu demanded, glaring at the man whose agents had just manhandled her. You will not take the evidence that I have just shown you to Minato because he already knows Naruto is alive. Minato knows? Kaharu questioned as she relaxed, hearing that Minato knew, which meant he was already taking action to retrieve Naruto. You hand Kaharu the second folder. Danzo ordered, not bothering to answer Kaharu's question. What is this? Kaharu asked, wide-eyed as she stared at the new pictures in her hands, more shocked than she was when she looked at the ones that proved Naruto was alive. Those are pictures taken of Minato meeting with the orange-masked man that supposedly killed Naruto. Danzo explained. They are very real, Kaharu, and are the reason why you cannot go to Minato with the evidence I have shown you, because he is the one responsible for Naruto's predicament, and unless you want both of us and Naruto to end up dead, you will keep the information I have shared with you to yourself. But why? Kaharu asked as she tried making sense of what she was hearing, not sure what to believe. Why would Minato do this? Because he is not who he appears to be. Danzo simply replied. 8 years ago, a week after the Sunachunin exams, Kizashi Haruno, Minato Namikaze, and Mibuyuki went on a B rank mission that turned S rank when they were ambushed by 4 A-class Kiri missing nin. The 4 missing nin attempted to capture the 3, but Minato managed to kill them. Sadly, Kizashi died during the fight and the 3-man team returned a man short. Danzo said before pausing as he nodded at you to remove his mask, which he did, earning a shocked gasp from a wide-eyed Kaharu. That did not happen. Danzo revealed to the shocked Kaharu. As you can see, Kizashi is very much alive. Danzo stated as he gestured to his purple-haired agent who had just removed his mask. The mission never turned S rank, there were no A-class Kiri missing nin that ambushed them and killed Kizashi. Those were all lies that were told by Minato to hide the truth of what really happened. What really happened? Yes, what really happened. When Hiruzen initially approved the root program, he instructed me to only recruit volunteers. Volunteers that I usually found by approaching the weaker younger shinobi of the village that held potential. Offering them promises of power to achieve their goals and dreams if they joined my program. Such a shinobi was Kizashi Haruno. He was weak and had a single goal in his life, earning the affections of his teammate Mibuyuki. This made him the ideal candidate, as a simple promise of power to impress Mibuyuki was all that would be needed to have him join. Danzo revealed to Kaharu, who glanced at Kizashi expecting a reaction from him, but like all of Danzo's route, the man remained emotionless despite his leader's words. A week after the Sunachunin exams 8 years ago, an agent of mine was sent to observe and try to recruit Kizashi during a B-rank mission. Kizashi was assigned with Mibuyuki and Minato, which my agent did. He watched the trio and waited for the right moment to approach Kizashi, but while he waited, instead of seeing 4 Kiri missing nin attack, Minato's temporary team like Minato reported my agent saw Minato Namikaze drive a katana through Kizashi Haruno's heart. Flashback within a flashback. 8 years ago, outside Konoha gates, Mibuyuki-chan, look, a 16-year-old boy with purple hair, called out as he unsheathed the brand new katana strapped on his back that he had gotten to impress Mibuyuki before striking a cool pose with it as he tried to. What? The blonde Kunoichi asked, confused, not sure what her teammate wanted her to see. Don't I look cool with my new katana? Kizashi questioned as he shifted into another pose he thought was cool to further impress Mibuyuki before frowning as he heard her burst into a fit of laughter, clearly unimpressed. Put that sword away, dope, or else you might cut yourself trying to act cool. Mibuyuki told Kizashi as she stopped laughing at how stupid her teammate looked with it. Dope? Kizashi questioned as he lowered his katana, his frown deepening at the insult his crush had never called him before. Hi dope, Naruto-kun, unlike you, is now cool. Miyuki told Kizashi as she blushed slightly thinking of the Asura boy she had watched win the Sunachunin exams a week ago, along with hundreds of others. Naruto-kun, Kizashi slowly growled out as his fist clenched, not liking his crush's sudden attitude change to the dead last of their class. How is that dope cool he can't have? Naruto-kun is cooler than you Kizashi. Miyuki interrupted with a glare. He's now, and he invented a before anyone in our class could, unlike you who just stands around all day playing ninja with a sword you can't even use. The dope invented a Kizashi questioned in disbelief. Hi, Miyuki confirmed with a blush, thinking of how cool Naruto looked with the blue swirling ball of chakra that he had awed everyone with in the final round of the exams as he won them using it. It's called the Rasengan. The Rasengan. A voice corrected behind Miyuki causing her eyes to widen as she instantly recognized the voice that had corrected her. Minato-kun. Miyuki greeted excitedly with a smile and a deep blush on her face as she turned to face her crush who was wearing his standard attire complete with a flak jacket. Sorry to interrupt your conversation Miyuki-san, Kizashi-san Minato apologized politely. But Naruto's new one is called the Rasengan. Minato corrected, using his facade to hide the anger he felt overhearing two more people talk about the fact that more than half the village was going on and on about. The Rasengan Minato inwardly scoffed angrily thinking of the pathetic A rank that he knew he would outshine when he completed his S rank that would allow him to teleport instantly from point A to B, rather than just forming a simple ball of chakra. Maybe I will get that damned Asura to teach me this and then upgrade it by adding a natural transformation to it. Minato thought with an inward smirk as he saw another way to outshine Naruto's dot by making an S-rank version of it that will make everyone, and most importantly Kushina, forget about its original pathetic A-rank version. It's fine Minato-kun, Miyuki reassured with a blush, waving off her crush's apology as she broke him from his thoughts. In fact, thank you for correcting me. It was nothing Miyuki-san, Minato told the Kunoichi he was to lead on a mission along with her genin teammate. It wasn't nothing Minato-kun at wa. Can you just tell us what the formation for the mission is already for Minato? Kizashi interrupted with a frown, not liking the way his crush was acting around the blonde dot. Of course Kizashi-san, but first since I am going to be the team leader for this mission, I ask that you both refer to me as Minato-senpai or Minato-sensei, not Minato from this point on until the mission is over. Minato requested authoritatively as he looked at the duo before him, establishing his position as their team leader and not their former classmate. Hi Minato-sensei senpai. Both teams complied, Kizashi doing so begrudgingly. But now, as for the formation, Miyuki-san shall carry the message scroll since she has the second highest rank. Minato revealed pulling out the message scroll for Miyuki to take. Why aren't you doing Minato-ku-sensei since you are the strongest? Miyuki questioned her crush that she thought should carry the message scroll since with him the scroll would be safest. Because Miyuki-san I am the highest ranking shinobi here and any potential enemies would likely assume that I have the scroll with me since it would be safest with the person they would deduce to be the strongest from rank. Or with Kizashi-san, the lowest ranked shinobi and the one they would deduce to be weakest since he would likely be the one ordered to flee with it upon encountering enemies whilst the strongest two remain to fight them off. Minato explained, earning a nod from Miyuki who pocketed the scroll in her flak jacket and a glare from Kizashi who hated that Minato just called him the weakest in front of his crush. Now, as for you Kizashi-san, Minato began as he turned to the only genin of the team he was leading. Your job is to lag behind while Miyuki and I move together ahead. This will reinforce the illusion that you have the scroll and make it look like Miyuki and I am moving ahead of you to scout your path and ensure it's safe. Also with me next to Miyuki, I can remain close to the scroll at all times and easily protect it if we are attacked. Minato explained to Kizashi who begrudgingly nodded accepting the blonde's order. Now let's move, we only have 2 days to deliver the scroll and return with its reply. Minato ordered before he, Miyuki, and Kizashi moved away from the village with the formation he had instructed. Line break. At night, why are we stopping Minato-sensei? Miyuki asked between pants trying to hide the relief she felt at finally being ordered to stop from her crush. Because you and Kizashi are too tired to continue. We will rest here tonight. Minato announced after answering Miyuki's question causing the blonde and her teammate to immediately collapse onto the forest floor in relief. I'm sorry Minato-sensei. Miyuki apologized embarrassed as she realized her crush definitely now knew of her fatigue from the way she had just collapsed in front of him. It's fine, Minato reassured with a false smile, thinking that it was in fact pathetic that after only 6 hours of traveling these two wanted shinobi in front of him looked half to death. Just set up camp with Kizashi-san's help after you're done catching your breath Miyuki-san. Minato ordered before he turned to leave. And where are you going? An exhausted Kizashi asked from the ground as he lifted his head to look at the blonde who was apparently not going to help them. Kizashi Minamoto-kun is the team leader and he doesn't need to tell us where he's going. Miyuki told her nosy dope of a teammate as she glared at him. "It's alright Miyuki-san, Kizashi-san can question me or any team leader he has if he feels they are making the wrong call." Minato reminded the blonde Kunoichi who stopped glaring at her teammate when she realized Minato was right. Since they weren't in a combat situation, Kizashi could indeed question Minato, but not disobey him. "I'm going to check around the perimeter of Kizashi-san to see if there are any enemies that may have followed us." Minato lied as he answered Kizashi's question before continuing his way away from the duo as he in fact went to meet his sensei's messenger. "Line break, Zetsu," Minato called out as he stopped at the spot he was supposed to meet his sensei's messenger. "Minato." A dual voice said to the left of Minato, turning his attention to Zetsu whose upper body stuck out from a tree. "Zetsu, any word from sensei? Did he find the scroll?" "He did," Zetsu said, pulling out the scroll that once belonged to the first Uzukage, Kushina Uzumaki, that Minato needed to begin the first steps of he was inventing. "And he said to begin the plan." Zetsu added a second scroll for the Namikaze to take, which he did. "Give sensei my regards and tell him I shall begin the plan immediately," Minato requested as he sealed away the scroll whilst keeping hold of the other that he knew he would need shortly. "Hi," Zetsu replied before disappearing back into the tree he stuck out from, leaving behind Minato, who smirked as he moved back towards the clearing he had left Miyuki and Kizashi to begin the first steps of his sensei's plan. Not noticing the floating eyeball that watched him in the distance as he did. "Line break, you are doing it wrong Kizashi, you are sup, mutant DAITOPPA wind, release." "Great breakthrough." A voice called out over Miyuki's chiding voice, interrupting her and Kizashi as a gust of wind shot from the woods, knocking them back and away from the pile of firewood they were trying to ignite. "Miyuki?" Kizashi called out in worry as he flew back from the force of the wind before landing painfully on the forest floor with a grunt. Kizashi groaned out, calling to his crush again as he shakily got back onto his feet. Before unsheathing his katana as he looked around for either his crush or the enemy that had attacked them. "Minato," Kizashi whispered in relief as his wandering eyes fell onto the blonde running towards him. "Minato, Miyuki-chan, and we are." Kizashi screamed out in agony, his words to Minato turning into cries of pain as 4 kunai coated in wind chakra buried themselves painfully in each of his limbs. "Minato, what are you doing?" Kizashi demanded between gritted teeth, glaring at the blonde who didn't answer him as he blitzed in front of Kizashi before hoofing him in the chest, sending the purple-haired teen flying back and away from his katana that he dropped from the force of the kick. "You erged that bastard." Kizashi gritted out in pain as he tried to get up so he could fight the blonde who had attacked him twice, but failing to, as the pain from the 4 buried kunai immobilized him and prevented him from getting up from the 4. "Minato, I'm going to," Kizashi began, but was silenced by a katana through his heart that Minato drove through his back, killing the purple-haired boy with his own blade. Miyuki whispered, horrified, as she stepped towards her teammate, having just witnessed his murder by the hands of her crush after she got up from the wind that knocked her aside. "Minato WH. Shut up Miyuki," Minato cut off the blonde as he glared at her coldly. "The only reason you are still alive is because I have use for you," Minato told the blonde as he unraveled the scroll Zetsu had given him that contained the bodies of the 4 dead, Kyrie-class missing men that he would use to cover up Kizashi's murder and make himself look like a hero. "This isn't you," Miyuki told the blue-eyed teen before her as she tried reaching out to him so she could break him out of whatever he must be under. "This is Na." "Shut up." Minato roared at the downed Miyuki he had just backhanded harshly. "You are a useless fangirl who can't even do one simple thing right. Well, that changes today," Minato told the now crying Miyuki as he dropped the storage scroll next to Kizashi's corpse, deciding to use it later after he applied the loyalty and memory-altering seals on Miyuki. "Minamoto-kun, this isn't you," Miyuki pleaded between sobs as she looked up at her crush who knelt between her legs. "Miyuki, you and everyone else in Konoha were just as stupid to see it," Minato told the blonde Kunoichi, tearing open her jacket before forcing up her top. "No Minato, please don't." Miyuki cried out, utterly terrified as she tried fighting her way out from under the affected Minato, not wanting him to do what she feared he was about to. "As if I would ever touch you," Minato scoffed as he looked down at the futilely fighting Miyuki before forming 3 cage bunshin to hold her down better so he could apply the seals. "Please Minato," Miyuki pleaded, sobbing as she felt 3 sets of hands hold her down firmly to stop her from escaping. "Please Minato, don't do this isn't you," Miyuki pleaded again, still thinking Minato was going to force himself on her. Earning another scoff from the blonde teen who ignored Miyuki's pleas as he unsealed his equipment before forcefully pushing her clothing aside so he could draw the complex seal on the Kunoichi he had picked to play a part in his plans. "There," Minato told the crying Miyuki who just now lay there sobbing, no longer fighting or pleading as she succumbed to whatever dark fate awaited her. "You will now be my tool to use however I please." Minato revealed to Mibuyuki uncaringly, earning another round of sobs from her as she watched him from a long chain of hand seals before she cried out in agony as the seals Minato drew on her began to glow with a bright light as they activated. Before vanishing as the now exhausted Mibuyuki passed out. Line break, Mibuyuki-chan. Awaking Mibuyuki heard someone call from next to her. Mibuyuki-chan. The voice called out again causing the blonde's eyes to flutter open so she could see who it was. Minato-kun, Mibuyuki said with a blush as she looked up at the blonde teen who was kneeling over her form that lay down on the forest floor. What happened to Minato-kun, where's Kizashi? Mibuyuki questioned as she sat up after failing to see her teammate anywhere near the campfire burning before her. I'm sorry Mibuyuki-chan. Minato apologizes remorsefully, still kneeling next to the blonde. Sorry for what? Mibuyuki questioned Minato as she tried not to squeal in delight at hearing him finally use the affectionate chan honorific at the end of her name. Kizashi-san, he's dead. Mibuyuki interrupted her joy over hearing Minato add chan to her name vanishing as memories of her teammate's murder by the 4 Kiri missing nin flashed into her mind along with them dying by Minato's hand. He's gone, Kizashi gone. Mibuyuki whispered as her eyes watered. Hi Mibuyuki-chan, I'm sorry, Minato apologized as he moved closer to Mibuyuki before pulling her into a comforting hug as she wept. He's gone Minato-kun, I called him dope and now he's gone. Mibuyuki yelled in distress as sobbed into Minato's shoulder, accepting his comfort as she clung to him. Not noticing the sinister smirk on his face as she did. Flashback within a flashback end. Why didn't you tell Hiruzen? Kaharu questioned as she stared at the scar on Kizashi's back that proved Minato was indeed the monster Danzo just told her he was. Why didn't you tell him so he could have stopped Minato instead of making him Hokage? Because Kaharu Hiruzen was a moral Hokage, the kind that would have had Minato executed had I revealed his actions despite him not being the true threat to Konoha. True threat. Hi, Danzo confirmed as he signaled his still masked agent Usagi who stepped forward before handing her leader another file. After the incident I had an agent retrieve Mibuyuki so that another one of my agents, codenamed Fukurm, could inspect the seals drawn on her. Danzo explained as he handed Kaharu a picture of unconscious Mibuyuki whose torso was covered in seals that had been made visible by a temporary seal Fukurm had drawn on her to counter Minato's cloaking one. My agent Fukurm is a master who was trained with the best scrolls Konoha had to offer. His mastery over the art was so great to the point that he was familiar with Mito Uzumaki's seals, but yet he couldn't recognize or break the seals that a 16-year-old Minato drew. You're the one responsible for the Senju compound break 11 years ago. Kaharu correctly deduced as she glared at Danzo, having connected the dots of how his agent was familiar with Mito Uzumaki's dot. That is not the point. Danzo brushed off Kaharu's accusation which he didn't bother to deny since it was true. The point is Minato at the age of 16 drew a seal that Fukurm didn't even recognize despite his familiarity with Mito Uzumaki's seals. Danzo explained, causing Kaharu's eyes to slightly widen at the frightening feat. Minato did not create the seal. Danzo started reading Kaharu's thoughts from her expression. Even though he was a prodigy, such a feat at that age would be impossible. Fuinjutsu is a complex art and there is no way Minato created a seal that was more complex than Mito Uzumaki's by the time he was only 16. The seals he used on Mibuyuki were obviously not of his creation, but rather of his unknown senseis, who had given him the go-ahead to execute their plan that night 8 years ago. He is the real threat and the reason Minato couldn't die until his identity was discovered through Minato. That is not your decision to make Danzo. Hiruzen was the Hokage, and he could have had Minato captured and interrogated had yo. Don't be naive Kaharu. You've been a shinobi for several years. Interrogation techniques are easily avoided even by the weakest of shinobi. Danzo interrupted, brushing aside Kaharu's suggestion, who simply frowned, failing to find any words to argue with what the bandaged man just said since it was true. That Hiruzen found out his morality would have jeopardized any chance I had of finding out Minato-sensei identity, their plans or any of their allies. So instead of taking the information to him I did in the shadows what Hiruzen couldn't do in the light, as Hokage. And what did that result to Danzo? In the 8 years that you have known about Minato's true character, the only result that I can see from your actions in the shadows is Minato becoming the most powerful man in Konoha. So what have you not told Hiruzen accomplished? Kaharu questioned the bandaged man before her with a glare. Fenikusu? Danzo simply replied, confusing Kaharu whose glare turned into a frown as she wondered what Danzo meant. Phoenix? Yes, it's a codename I gave to my most valuable spy who I managed to gain after his supposed death during the Third Great Shinobi War. Danzo elaborated. Even with my rude organization in the first years of watching Minato, I failed to gain any valuable information, but that all changed when I managed to recruit Fenikusu, a spy close to the true Minato, and not his facade. Danzo continued to elaborate before pausing as he handed Kaharu a picture of Fenikusu. Kaheru enraged as she looked at the picture Danzo had just handed her. He's Fenikusu, he's your spy Danzo's, he's responsible FO. His actions were to gain Minato's trust. A voice behind Danzo interrupted Kaheru, surprising her as she looked back at the brown-haired Usagi who sounded upset, which shouldn't be possible since Danzo's root were all supposedly emotionless. He didn't want to do it, boo. That's enough, Usagi. Danzo ordered, firmly silencing his female agent who was his only contact with Fenikusu, hence why he couldn't kill her like he would any other agent who would have blurted out valuable information like she had. His actions were to gain Minato's trust. Danzo explained as he turned back to Kaheru, repeating what Usagi had just said. Trust that he was able to use to learn that Minato and his senseis have plans concerning the 9 which they plan to retrieve through an organization of S-class missing nin called Akatsuki. Akatsuki? Fenikusu? Biju? Kaheru repeated to herself, her head spinning as she tried to make sense of all Danzo had said and processed it. What does all of this have to do with Naruto, Danzo? Kaheru questioned, deciding to deal with what mattered to her most now and process the rest later. What does faking his death have to do with any of this? What does it have to do with Minato and his sensei's plans? I don't know. Danzo lied since he did know from the information Fenikusu passed on to him through Usagi a few days ago, but he couldn't tell Kaheru since she would insist they retrieve Naruto immediately. All I know is that Minato sealed his memory. He sealed his memories, Kaheru questioned murderously as she interrupted Danzo. Yes. Danzo confirmed. Why he faked his death and did that I do not know, but I intend to find out. Danzo added as he reached into his sleeve to pull out something. We have to go retrieve him, Danzo, he has no memories and— No, Danzo said, cutting off Kaheru's suggestion. Naruto is safe where he is, he has several of my root guarding him from any real threat. And you trying to make contact or retrieve him will not only jeopardize everything I have done to protect Konoha from Minato, but also jeopardize the opportunity Fenikusu has gained by proving his loyalty to Minato a few weeks ago. But Naru will only die along with his wife and children if you do anything. Danzo stated bluntly as he interrupted Kaheru. Have you not been listening to what I have said the last hour? Minato Namikaze is not who he appears to be. If he catches wind that someone knows of his and his sensei's plans, he won't hesitate to kill them. I'm hoping that Fenikusu will learn more about the identity of Minato sensei, which won't be possible if you try to rescue Naruto or tell anyone of his location in Nami no Kuni. And if Fenikusu doesn't find out, will Naruto-chan stay in Nami no Kuni indefinitely with no memories until Fenikusu does? Kaheru questioned with a glare, refusing to put Kushina, Ashina, and Naruto through that, despite there being this bigger threat to Konoha that Danzo had been going on and on about. It won't come to that if Fenikusu fails. I have set up a backup plan that lets me get closer to Minato, a plan that will allow me to find out the identity of the true threat to Konoha and his plans along with his allies if Fenikusu fails. Danzo reassured Kaheru as he pulled out a scroll from his sleeve and handed it to her. What's this? Kaheru questioned as she accepted the scroll. It's a scroll with all the information I have gathered on Minato, his allies, and his plans. And why would you give me this? Kaheru questioned suspiciously, knowing Danzo would never hand out such valuable information without an agenda. Because if Fenikusu fails and my backup plan leads to my death, my root has been ordered to retrieve Naruto Asura and restore his memories. In such an event you are to hand him that scroll that contains the information he will need to run my route and continue my efforts against Minato, hence why I came here to you tonight. Danzo explained, shocking Kaheru. What? Kaheru was shocked, having never expected Danzo to hand over the reins of running his route to Naruto after he sacrificed himself. I have always thought about it, Kaheru. Danzo revealed, having read the woman's thoughts. Over the years of watching the Asura, I saw something in him that Hiruzen lacked that made Naruto the ruler Konoha truly needed, and that made me think of giving him succession of my root program, hence why I never tried to recruit him. Danzo revealed, knowing that a leader couldn't be emotionless, which all his root were except for Usagi, whose emotions he hadn't removed since her love for Fenikusu was a large reason why he remained loyal to him. Fine, Kaheru agreed after a moment, having failed to find any sign of falsehood on Danzo's expression after moments of looking for it. I will trust you on this, Danzo, and do as you ask concerning Naruto-chan, but if anything happens to him or his family, it is your head alongside Minato's that I will go for. Kaheru promised darkly, earning a nod from Danzo, who signaled his agents to remove the privacy seals before he left with them. Leaving behind Kaheru, who sat in her office alone, in silence, as she processed all that she had heard about her surrogate son Naruto and the monster of a man that was Minato. Flashback end. I'm ready to go. Kushina said as she came back into the room, breaking Kaheru from her thoughts as she turned to see a freshly cleaned and changed Kushina came back into the room. Kushina-chan. Minato thought as he looked at the redeed. His pulse quickening and his member hardening like they always did each time he saw her, no matter what she was wearing. Whether it be her form-hugging outfit or a simple loose-fitting green dress like the one she was wearing over a white blouse. Abe-san, are you sure you're okay with taking care of Ashina-chan and Naruko-chan? Kushina questioned Kaharu, not wanting to be a burden to her. She's sure, Minato replied before Kaharu could. Go have some fun with your friends Kushina, Kaharu-san, and I will be here to take care of the twins. Minato reassured, earning an appreciative smile from Kushina and a glare from Kaharu, who could see what Minato was trying to do. Geez Minato, with the way you are so insistent on trying to get Kushina-chan to go out with us, I would think you are trying to find an excuse to neglect your duties as Hokage and escape your mountain of paperwork. Zoom jokes, earning a laugh from everyone including Minato, who kept up his facade as he sneered on the inside. I have Kage Bunshin for that, Zoom. Minato explained after all the laughing died out, earning nods from all the mothers who each left at least one clone to care of their newborns whilst they went out with Kushina. Thank Kami for those, or else Fugaku would have been left to take care of Satsuki-chan alone. Mikoto said, earning another round of laughter from her friends who couldn't picture the stony man feeding a baby, least of all changing a diaper. At least he'll have little Itachi-chan to help him. But Shikaku alone with Shikamaru-chan, that's a true disaster. Yoshino said, as she and her friends left the house, causing them to break out into another fit of laughter as they imagined the lazy man mumbling troublesome as he lazily tried to change a diaper. Soon my love, soon you will be mine, Minato promised inwardly. His lust filled his blue eyes, enjoying the sight of Kushina's shapely bottom that he could faintly make out as he watched her leave with the 5 other women. But first I need to place the seals on the damned Asura spawns. Minato reminded himself by pushing his dirty thoughts of Kushina away as he turned his gaze to Kaharu, smiling politely at her as he used his usual facade. Kaharu-san, I was wondering if Minato began respectfully but was interrupted by Kaharu, who was using a facade of her own. Please Hokage-sama, call me Kaharu. After all, you were like a brother to my surrogate son. Kaharu interrupted politely, forcing a smile on her face that hid the disgust she felt looking at the man she watched lustfully undress her surrogate daughter Kushina with his eyes. Only if you call me Minato. Minato complied with his usual disarming smile, smirking inwardly as he looked at another person his facade had fooled. Okay Minato, what do you need? Kaharu questioned politely, completely unaffected by the monster before her hideous smile, as she referred to what he was about to ask moments before when she interrupted him. I was wondering if you could teach me how to change a diaper, Minato requested as he forced an embarrassed look on his face. Mibuki-chan tried last week and it ended up being a disaster. Minato elaborated, still looking embarrassed. Truthfully, Minato didn't care about changing diapers, but he knew Kushina would ask Kaharu what they did whilst she was gone, and hearing that he, the 4th Hokage, got diaper changing lessons from her would surely pull on Kushina's heart. What are you up to, Minato? Kaharu inwardly questioned suspiciously. She wasn't fooled by his embarrassed expression and knew there was something he was up to. No need to be embarrassed, Minato. Kaharu reassured me with a smile. Hiruzen came to me for the same thing when Bawako-chan gave birth to Asuma. Kaharu added, causing Minato to inwardly chuckle as he saw his plan had worked. He would get a chance to show Kushina how much of a better man he was than the damned Asura and also get access to the twins, allowing him to place the seals on them. Just go fetch Menma-chan and I will teach you. Kaharu added, breaking Minato from his thoughts. Menma? Hi, the twins are sleeping and I wouldn't want to disturb them since you know how difficult it is to get them to calm down and go back to sleep. Kaharu explained, feeling satisfied as she saw the rage that flashed in Minato's eyes that told her she had foiled whatever he had been up to. You are not getting anywhere near my grandchildren, you monster. Kaharu thought protectively, making a mental note to ask Danzo to get several of his agents to watch over Kushina and the twins. Menma-chan is with Mibuki's Kage Bunshin and I don't want to risk her finding out about the lessons since I really want this to be a surprise. Minato lied, hiding his rage as he tried reasoning with a woman who was about to foil his plans to apply seals on the Asura's 2 spawns. Don't worry Minato, Kaharu reassured me. Mibuki will be overjoyed with you wanting to spend time with your child so that she won't suspect a thing. Kaharu added with a reassuring smile that Minato wanted to wipe off with a Rasengan to her face. Alright, Minato complied with a false smile. Let me go fetch Menma, then we can begin. Minato added before flashing away towards his home. You will not go near them. Kaharu promised slowly as she dropped her facade, glaring at the spot Minato once stood, determined to not let the monster of a man anywhere near her grandchildren. I will protect them for you, Naruto-chan. Kaharu promised her surrogate son, who she prayed to Kami was alright in Nami no Kuni. I will protect them for you until you return to us. Line break. Several hours later, Nami no Kuni. This is a really good tsunami, and now awake Naruto told the dark-haired woman as he sat at the dining room table she had helped him to. Wolfing down the food she had prepared for him as he tried to sate the hunger that had built up inside him from not having eaten for several days. Thank you Naruto-san. Tsunami said with a slight blush as she watched a handsome shirtless man before her dig into her food enthusiastically, obviously enjoying it. Even without my memories, I'm sure this has to be the best food I have ever tasted. Naruto started with a chuckle as he paused from digging into his food, earning another blush from Tsunami, who was glad Naruto wasn't as downcast as he had been several days ago about not having memories. Thank you, Tsunami. Naruto started breaking the woman from her thoughts as she turned her gaze back to Naruto, who was smiling at her appreciatively. Don't mention Naruto-san, it's just food. I'm not talking about just the food, Tsunami. Thank you for everything. Naruto elaborated. Thank you for everything you've done for me since I first woke up. It was nothing, Naruto. It wasn't nothing, Tsunami. You didn't have to help me and be so kind to me, especially after the masked Ma. It wasn't your fault, Naruto. Tsunami interrupted, reassuring the man who had been beating himself up over what happened to them since he woke up. It was it, Tsunami. It was my fault you and Tazuna were attacked, but you still were kind to me. You still helped me, even going as far as standing up to Tazuna when he tried to kick me out. Why you heard that, Naruto-san? Tsunami asked with an embarrassed blush, hearing that Naruto hurt her when she threatened to leave the house with him if her father didn't let him stay. I did. Naruto admitted with a smile. And thank you for that. Naruto told Tsunami sincerely as he stared into her eyes, truly grateful, earning another blush from Tsunami, whose pulse quickened as she gazed into Naruto's violet eyes. Kushina Tsunami heard Naruto's voice croak in her head lovingly, like he had the first time they had stared into each other's eyes like this, breaking her from her thoughts as she quickly turned her gaze away, suddenly feeling guilty about letting Naruto affect her the way he was, since this Kushina he had mistaken her for earlier was likely his wife, girlfriend or lover, judging by his loving actions towards her when he thought she was her. Why, you're welcoming, Naruto-san. Tsunami said, making sure to keep her gaze away from him as she got up from the table. Let me go get you some more food. Tsunami added before hastily leaving the room, earning an appreciative smile from Naruto, who watched a retreating back of the person he considered his first friend before eagerly turning back to the amazing food he was going to get a second serving of. Line break, Clan District. Then after an hour of trying to calm Itachi-chan down, Fugaku woke up half the compound yelling, "I'll put you in if you don't stop crying." Makoto told her friends, earning a laugh from them all as they made their way back to Kushina's home, having spent several hours just talking as they wandered around the village aimlessly. I don't know what's worse, Makoto-chan. Soon began as her laughs from trying to imagine the always compassed Fugaku frustrated subsided. Your story about the reason why you can't leave a baby with Fugaku, or Hito-chan's story about the reason why you can't leave a baby with Hiashi? Definitely the reason why you cannot leave a baby with Hiashi, Tsun-chan. I mean, who threatens to use the Juken on a baby, especially one as cute as Hinata-chan? Makoto started faking a horrified expression, earning another round of laughs from her friends, who knew Makoto was joking, since neither Hiashi or Fugaku would do what they threatened to do to their respective firstborns when they were both frustrated. They loved them too much for that. I don't know about Makoto-chan. I think a baby is worse than a Juken strike. I mean, think of the lasting psychological damage. Miyuki spoke up, voicing her opinion as everyone's laugh subsided. I'm with Miyuki-chan on this, it is much worse than a Juken strike. You're only saying that because Hiashi is your husband, Hito-chan. Makoto started earning a deadpan look from all her friends. What? Makoto asked, confused. And you're not saying that the Juken is worse because Fugaku is your husband? Hitomi questioned with a raised eyebrow, causing Makoto to grow embarrassed as she realized she was unknowingly being a hypocrite. I have to agree with Miyuki-chan on this. Yoshino spoke up, turning everyone's attention away from Makoto towards her. Fugaku's threat was worse. Yoshino started earning a betrayed look from Makoto. What about Kushina-chan, whose threat do you think was worse? Makoto asked, hoping the Redeed at least wouldn't betray her and would side with Fugaku. Definitely the Maiko-chan. Kushina immediately replied without hesitating before she and everyone else broke out into another fit of laughter as they watched the Uchiha among them begin to pout. Some best friend you are. Makoto said slowly as she fake sulked, earning another round of laughter from everyone as they continued on through the clan district before they all fell into a comfortable silence. Thank you guys. Kushina told her friends, breaking the silence between them as the entrance to the Asura Uzumaki residence came into view. These past days after Naruto Koi's death have been really hard for me, and today took my mind off everything, so thank you guys for that. Kushina said appreciatively, smiling at each of her friends who smiled back, glad to see their friend was beginning to heal from her husband's death. We didn't do it for you, Kushina-chan. I mean, 3 days of not bathing can really affect a person's nose, especially an Inuzuka's. Tsume said jokingly as she scrunched up her face, earning her a bonk on the head from an embarrassed Kushina and a round of laughs from all of her other friends. Don't mention that out here, Kushina exclaimed flustered as she glanced around to see if anyone had heard Tsume, which they thankfully hadn't. Besides, Kunoichi do it all the time, sometimes going weeks without bathing. Kushina recalled, as she tried to defend herself. Kushina-chan, Kunoichi don't bathe for weeks because they will be on missions. But when at home there is no excuse for a Kunoichi, shinobi or anyone else to go a day alone without bathing. Hitomi started countering her friend's statement, who grew further embarrassed as she failed to come up with a point to counter the Hyuga's own. I'm going home. A red-faced Kushina huffed as she decided running away was the best option to end this discussion about her lack of good hygiene the past days before someone overheard it. And remember to take a bath. Soon called out after the running away. Kushina earned a round of laughs from her friends who watched the Uzumaki turn back and shushed the Inyazuka with a red face that was making a perfect impression of a tomato as she blushed. She's going to be fine. Yoshino started with a smile as she and each of her friends watched the embarrassed Kushina hastily enter the Asura Uzumaki residence. She will. Hitomi also agreed, smiling. Now let's get Makoto-chan back to the Uchiha compound before Fugaku starts using it on Satsuki-chan. Don't you mean the Hyuga compound, Hito-chan? We wouldn't want Hiashi to accidentally affect Hinata-chan's chakra coil's development. Makoto playfully countered her friend's jab, earning a round of laughs from the four other women. Who with Makoto walked in the direction of the Inyazuka compound with smiles on their faces, happy that their mission to cheer up the retreat they had just dropped off worked. Line break, Asura Uzumaki residence. Minato. An embarrassed Kushina yelled in surprise as she entered her home, bumping straight into the blonde man. Kushina, Minato greeted the Uzumaki that he had been waiting for at the door with a smile after his clone that he had followed her and her friends dispelled to give him the information that she was returning. Did you have fun? I did. Kushina tells Minato, smiling at him since it was largely due to him that she had in fact gone out. Good, Minato said, his smile widening as he saw that at least one thing he planned for today had gone his way since Koharu had prevented him from accessing the twins he planned to draw seals on all day. And the twins? Kushina questioned worryingly as she tried to step around Minato to check up on them but was stopped by his two hands that gently gripped her shoulders, stopping her. They are fine, Minato reassured Kushina as he looked down at her, his hands remaining on her shoulders. Koharu just had a bit of a hard time putting them to sleep, but that's no surprise considering who their mother is. And their father, Kushina added as she shared a small laugh with Minato, whose eyes flashed with hatred for a second when he heard Kushina mention her husband. Thank you, Minato. Kushina told the blonde man in front of her. Thank you for ordering me to go out today, and thank you for taking care of the twins. I know Naruto-koi death wasn't easy on you, and thank you for being someone I could lean on despite you also hurting Da, Kushina said to the blonde man she saw as a brother before pulling him into a sisterly hug. You're welcome, Kushina. Minato was forced out as he felt disappointment grip his being from hearing the love of his life call him big brother. And if you ever need some to talk to or lean on, you can always come to me, Yuramoto. Kushina tells Minato sincerely as she breaks the hug, failing to notice the look of disappointment and hurt in his eyes. I will, Minato promised with a forced smile before he immediately flushed away towards his office. Line break, you can always come to me, Yuramoto. You can always come to me, Yuramoto. Minato heard Kushina's voice repeatedly in his head as he flashed into his office. Damn you, Naruto. You can always come to me, Yuramoto. Minato heard Kushina's voice continue to repeat in his head, causing his jaw to clench as his hurt and disappointment slowly turned to anger as he pictured the man who was the reason Kushina saw him as a brother. Damn you, Naruto. Minato mentally cursed as balled his fists at his sides. Damn you for stealing Kushina-chan from me. Minato cursed Naruto again as he raised his hands before forming a Rasengan in both of them, preparing to use them to decimate his office. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A voice said behind Minato, turning his attention to Danzo, who entered the Hokage's office without Minato noticing due to his angered state. Danzo-san, Minato greeted the bandaged man as he released the twin Rasengan he had formed. What are you? Drop the act, Minato. Danzo interrupted the man before him, who he could see was about to use his facade to explain what he walked in on. You weren't cursing your teammate in a moment of grief or whatever other reason you were about to use to explain what I heard and what I saw. Danzo said to Minato, causing his blue eyes to harden as he dropped his facade. And, as for what I am doing here, I have come to talk about the man you loathe, the man you were cursing, the man who you claim was dead but is in fact alive in Nami no Kuni. I have come to talk to you about Naruto Asura. The end. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.